Technology for sustainability, designing for the future. Like Priya said, sustainability is the core of development. But how sustainable design is happening right at the onset is what we're going to see. I would like to invite our esteemed panelists for the day. Ramyo De, General Manager, Planning and Design, Bangalore International Airport. Hi, Ramyo. Aneesh Kadyan, Director Operations, Asset Services, CBRE. Prisca Flattot, Director Engineering Centers, Asia Pacific Region, Operation Manager Bridge Group, SYSTRA. Nirup Jayanth, Country Head, Jurong Consultants, India. Hi. Good afternoon. Welcome to this panel discussion, and thank you. Thank you for being on this panel. Like Priya and Sunil said at the outset, there's a huge opportunity for AC and for sustainable design that we can create right at the beginning. But how much of it exactly, how much of sustainability goes right at the design stage is what we're going to explore. Nirup, I would like to throw my question to you first. You have been part of the government's Smart City project. Do you think technology is playing a major role in integrating it right at the outset? And how much of tech sustainability is being integrated into the technology?
Technology is actually helping us achieve these goals much better and faster. We're able to try and test a lot of things virtually before we put it into real implementation. And a lot of the information that we get out of design needs to then plug and play into software solutions that are being developed on top. Simple things like your BRTS, you can now predict and understand when and where the buses are. You can actually track them from GPS positioning solutions that are also built in. You have bus locations and sensors that are already placed. Similarly, a number of tools are already embedded as part of the technology solution today. And when you build that into the design process and carry it forward till sort of implementation and then build software on top of it to provide access to service and information to the end user, that's when it really becomes successful.
Thank you. Thank you. Ramyo, we recently read in the newspaper that Bangalore International Airport has incorporated 3D technology for construction and maintenance of the new international airport. How can large-scale infrastructure projects benefit from such tools? And is there a demand for such technology outside airports also?
Yes, there is. Yes, there is a demand for the technology also outside airports. I'll give you one example. Right now, our operation and maintenance, the engineering and maintenance teams are tracking the water usage of the entire terminal building, be it inside the terminal, the landscape areas, the public areas, private areas, everywhere. Now, we are in the process of installing water meters, RFID tags, as well as IoTs linked to those water meters to track real-time consumption. Because we are right now getting water from the city also, as well as we are recycling a lot of water from our sites. Now, this basically helps us to understand where our expenditure are, how much we are in terms of wastage, and also this technology can help in your cities where you have water scarcity to properly track where your flow is, what is the amount of wastage that is happening right now. So it definitely helps.
Okay. What is the kind of advanced technology that you use at the design stage?
See, we have two different technologies that we are using currently in the design stage. One is one technology goes into like engineering and operations, which tracks real-time data and things like that to make a better informed decision. Second is we select materials. Our primary concern is that we select materials which does not have an impact to the human body. I'll give you one example that we did in the design of T2. While doing the entire flooring works, we had selected a material called as cementitious terrazzo. Cementitious terrazzo is in the entire building right now. We sacrificed a lot of time and an extra money going for cementitious terrazzo because we have found out that epoxy terrazzo, the alternate cousin of it, due to its nature being a petrochemical compound, a lot of cancerous properties are associated with it. You will not see it today, you will not see it tomorrow, but the studies in US, Europe and everywhere, wherever epoxy or petrochemical products have been used, it leads to a certain kind of a malignant formation. So our basis of design is twofold. One is use materials which are much more natural in process. Whether they are time consuming, it is our responsibility to project manage it like that. Second is also to track the energy usage that is there in the entire project.
Right, thank you, thank you. Aneesh, within your current role as an operations head, what has been your experience in driving energy efficiency?
Before I answer that question, I'd just like to share a brief idea. You know, this is a AEC event, but I am actually, after all that AEC happens, all the construction happens, then the buildings are handed over to people like us from the building services side, and we run the buildings for the next 30, 40 years. So I think it's great that, you know, Autodesk has set up this thing in Delhi this time, and a lot of interesting things I've heard since morning. Coming to your question about energy efficiency, I think it ties up with the kind of focus which is given at the design stage about operation and maintenance, which is actually not much, unfortunately. While I was pleasantly surprised to hear about what Bangalore is doing. But initially the design stage, while of course there are a lot of green buildings and we've got about 5 billion square feet of registered green buildings in India, which is like the second largest in the world. But those are on paper actually most of the times, while the intent is good. But during operations, it's a different ball game altogether. Then the issues come about the cost involved. While everybody knows, yes, you have to, energy efficiency is going to bring down your cost, but then you have to put in some money to do retrofits. So the cost factor versus the benefits, I think what is the most challenging part in the work that we do, convincing our customers and our own people as well that yes, your initial inputs will result. But that's where I see technology coming in now with the IoT, with the connected systems. We're going to see the cost for getting energy conservation lower, and I think the results will definitely be better now.
Thank you. Okay. Prisca, I would like to ask you a question. With your vast experience in transportation engineering, do you think that integrating technology, or what are the sustainability parameters that can be integrated into the technology or at the design stage? And what do you think India needs in terms of urban transportation to make it more sustainable?
I think that when we are talking about transportation, we are already talking about sustainability, because when we are doing a transportation system, it's part of a global plan for sustainability for the city, to reduce the traffic, to reduce the pollution in the city and so on. So for us in SYSTRA, when we are designing this kind of project, we integrate in our design all the parameters of sustainability. So it's very large. There is the durability, of course, but also the efficiency of the network. We are building for 100 years. So this is not, we need to think about the need of today, but also about the need of tomorrow. And when we are inviting digital in our design, we are able to optimize and to I would say, see where we can earn more sustainability for the benefit of the end user and the final user.
Right, right. Where exactly is India lacking in terms of now we have the we have the mass urban transit coming up. So where is India lacking in terms of technology to make it more sustainable?
I'm sorry, but the return is very bad.
Where is India lacking in terms of the mass rapid transport that we're developing, the metros that are coming? So where is India lacking in terms of making it more sustainable?
I don't think that it's very difficult to talk about that. But I would say that now more and more in our design, and even in the standards that we are applying in the design, the sustainability is there. So this become mandatory, and with the use of the digital and the BIM, we are really, I would say, integrating from day one the sustainability issues that you can have in this kind of project.
Right. Nirup? Yes, sure.
I think you're saying how can the transportation sector be more sustainable?
Right.
So I will take that from the building services side, because there is a lot of real estate around the transport developments which are happening now. So I think there's a positive sign that there are now standards coming in, and I think the Delhi Metro has also got a few green stations, so to say. But I think that will be a driver, while the whole system will be definitely sustainable in terms of the energy use.
Right.
But the real estate network around the developments that I see of the transport setup, not only metros, but you see logistic parks and the inland ports which are there. I think once they realize that they have to have less impact on the environment, and there are maybe voluntary standards like the LEED or the GREA ratings, or something which is enforced by the government, I think that's how we'll be able to bring down the carbon footprint of
So is it becoming common, or are they few and far between?
No, I think the green movement in India is, I think it's skyrocketed since 2001 when it started. So it's catching up in all spheres, be it logistics, warehouses, factories, and of course the transportation sector as well.
Right.
So I think it's not uncommon now. You are seeing a lot of green developments now.
Right. Nirup, in terms of...
Let me just also add to that. Actually, in fact, India is actually leading, especially in the mass transit area. In fact, even 5 years ago, DMRC was able to claim carbon credits for the initiatives they've taken up here. And it was the first of its kind for a citywide metro to do it. So in fact, we're probably already leading the charge when it comes to sustainable initiatives driven in mass transportation.
Right. So in terms of smart cities also, like in transportation also is connected to that. Are we actually going the whole hog and making them green, right from the design stage?
Yes, I think that's already part of the mandate. One of the critical reasons why we have the Smart Cities program as such, and the Amrit program that have been launched here, is to optimize our energy and resource utilization across the cities. We have a lot of wastage that we're not tracking, and we're not acting in time to control that wastage. There's a lot of theft of power and other issues that are there. And again, there's no way to track, understand, and curtail all of those things. So part of the drive has been to optimize that, understand where it's going wrong, fix it, and have the ability to operate and maintain that infrastructure given today's technology.
Okay.
And I think this is the drive behind it.
Okay. And what are the challenges that you face? I mean, it's not easy, when you're coordinating with the multilateral agencies, to build a smart city. So you have lots of vendors coming in. So how is everybody on the same page?
See, the way it is set up today is you have a sort of a special purpose vehicle set up in each city, which is responsible for running the joint initiative. And the intent behind it is to have each of the line departments come together, address problems holistically. So there may be a guy who's responsible for waste, or a guy responsible for water, another guy who's responsible for power. But now they're looking at it as a common problem to solve. And it's not like somebody lays the road and 2 days later somebody's cutting it up to put in a telecom line, and another guy is going to come back 2 days later and put a drain through it and disrupt all your services. So at least from that point of view, the intent is to organize it up front. So this is now being taken up in what are called area-based projects. Specific areas are being identified in each city, and that's being taken up.
Right. Okay.
So that's...
Ramyo, you have a very expansive project that you're doing with Bangalore International Airport. Is technology the answer to scaling up, in terms of sustainable design? And what is the level of technology? And if you didn't have the kind of technology, what would be the case today?
See, if we did not have the technology, we would have to lose a lot of time. Time would be a critical factor in our progress, because ultimately, if our aim is to be for a sustainable project, we would have to sacrifice time.
Right.
So in today's scenario in which our budgets are constrained, we had government mandates and we have regulations in place to deliver a project in proper finances. Without proper technology, clash coordination, proper use of latest softwares, it would be very unlikely that even a project would take off.
Right, right. Aneesh, you would like to have a drink of water? Okay. Anish, considering looking at operations and maintenance, since you're more heavily involved in that, how does technology, what is the advancement in technology when, right from the design stage, how do you carry it forward right up to O&M? And what is the level of, how is O&M considered, how is O&M taken seriously in terms of sustainability?
Okay, so the two things, one you said was how is technology integrated in the design for O&M, and then how is technology being used in OEM? I think these are the two questions you asked. So traditionally, O&M, like I mentioned earlier, was not a big focus. The idea was to make a landmark building, and then we'll see how to maintain it. So many times we've got buildings to run where there is no access to the facade, the generators, you don't have access for maintenance. So those are all there. But these days, what the change that we are seeing is that right at the design stage, the inputs from the people who run the buildings are being taken, which I think is positive. And then we're also seeing BIM coming into the picture, where the entire services are being designed right at the beginning. All the checks, all the clashes are being checked, which again helps run the buildings better. Coming to the second part in terms of how is technology helping us run buildings better? Because if you see, typically it takes about say 2 to 3 years to build a landmark building, but then you have to run it for 40 years. So that's where most of its energy is going to be used. Most of the impact on the environment is going to be there. So you have BMS systems which are in place. You have a lot of advanced features which the designers put in the buildings. Currently, what's really happening is because there's no surety in terms of how the uptake of the building is, it's a very common scene. The building is ready for occupancy. You don't have tenants. So the BMS system isn't installed or it's not integrated. And the whole commissioning process does not go as per the lead program. So the buildings don't operate at the right design point. Sometimes they can be off by about 25 to 30% of their operating design as well, which is actually so much of waste. So that technology is now coming into play. One is from the hardware side, which is the BMS systems, but also using the parts of the BIM and the computer-aided management systems to have a full picture of the building, have more information, have more data around it, and then run it more efficiently. So we have seen now in the last 3 to 4 years, a lot of organizations take up automated building management systems, and of course they're reaping the benefits through running them at lower costs and more efficiently as well.
Right. Prisca, coming back to transportation, globally, you have worked globally also on projects, on master transport projects. How is technology used in terms of design right at the outset, and how do authorities ensure that that they're made sustainable and use till the life cycle, the entire life cycle of the project?
So we are using the technologies in the design in 3 ways actually. The first one is during the design, it's to provide 2 times the metro line or the railway. We are building digitally a first time to check the interfaces with other stakeholders or other structures in order to reduce the risk during the construction and to optimize also our structures. So that's the first thing that we are doing. The second thing is also to, I would say, use the power of the 3D and the power of the digital to simulate, for instance, the passenger flow in a station, to optimize the layout of the station to be sure that the end user will not wait too much at the queue point or the entry point of the station. So this is one of the aspects also that we are taking benefit of the BIM here. And the third thing, which I think is the most important, because as said earlier, we are building for operation and maintenance. We are providing to our clients full 3D models, full, I would say, federated models, which can be used during the operation and maintenance. And this is now becoming more and more mandatory now in India and worldwide. And so that is why in SYSTRA we are really looking into that, and we are developing also our tools, our proper tools to manage these assets for the client, and also to design with these parameters.
Right. I would like all of you to answer one question. Is technology a very, very core part of design? And how often is it integrated into large projects across the country?
He's the designer, yeah. You're the designer.
See, it's always a dream to integrate, but the reality is that some of the clients fall through from a financial perspective, from a commercial perspective. So as designers, we try our level best to see how far we can take it forward. But end of the day, finance drives the entire project process. So as designers, we try to achieve a balance between both of them. And you see all in the entire country projects, it is the same story everywhere. So as designers, we have to take a role, and we are taking a role in which we are trying to squeeze as much as possible sustainability out of it without having any financial problems.
Right. Okay, I have one question for you. If it's not technology that they're using at the design stage, and if they're compromising in terms because of finance or any other commercial issues, what are they using?
See, till today in India, a lot of designs are still getting done in a traditional way.
Okay.
Traditional way in the sense like BIM, Revit or Autodesk solutions are too far away for the masses. If you go to a tier B city or C city, you still have things getting done in paper, in pen.
Blueprint.
It's by a normal way, but things are changing, that I would say, and it will take time to change, but within the next decade, we will see a lot of changes getting happen.
Right. Aneesh.
So I guess a lot of business potential for Autodesk in tier 2, tier 3 cities. Yeah. So I think my take on technology, like of course the design, I'm not so closely linked with the design, but yes, like I said, we're getting inputs. It's all about awareness. What we have seen is that where the awareness levels are higher about what is available first of all, and then what the technology can do. Then the implementation right at the design stage is much better, and then when it starts at the design stage, the implementation and the ideas carry on to the operation and maintenance stage as well. So awareness, I think, is a big driver for integrating technology. And the other is, of course, the ease of use of that technology.
Right.
So how easy is that technology to be adopted into the system also defines that. And that's where I see where the more intuitive technology coming in now are getting accepted, because like you said, finance, they're the ones who decide. And when a person who's holding the purse strings sees what is actually visible and what's the benefits through the technology, then the uptake is much easier. So I think it's not where it should be. There should be more at all levels. I would say technology is a great enabler, but there is a positive trend, I think. It's moving in the right direction.
Okay. In terms of O&M, is there a huge cost to it? I mean, do developers, or does the owners rely on developers post-construction in terms of green buildings?
Well, cost is not really a factor, if you would ask me. Of course, I'm from the other side. I'm a service provider, so I would love technology to be there. But people who are actually making the decisions, for them, cost is there. Yes, there is a cost to technology, but again, the benefits of technology are not immediately visible, unfortunately. They're intangibles a lot of times.
Right.
So I don't know how many of you have read this book called The Sixth Extinction. So it basically talks about global warming and how the temperatures are rising. And 5 extinctions till now have been, because of asteroids or whatever it is.
Right.
The 6th extinction is, we are doing it to ourselves. And a lot of that is due to the buildings and the energy that is being consumed in the buildings, which is globally, they say it's around 40 to 45% of the total energy demand. So when you tell customers and they're maybe a bit more aware of these aspects, then for them cost doesn't matter. They take it up and they realize that, okay, within a period of 2 to 3 years, you will see the benefits.
Right.
But still, the uptake, because of cost, is still low, I would say.
Prisca?
I think that for us, we are 6,000 in the world in SYSTRA. So we have started to develop the collaboration through technologies, and this is mandatory in our work. Actually, we cannot do otherwise. We have a presence in 80 countries, so you can imagine that we need the technologies to communicate and to collaborate better. So the transition through BIM processes was, I would say, yes, there is a learning curve, of course, but through our international project and through the impulsion also of our clients and from our staff also, we are making the works better and more interesting. We have developed the BIM processes here in India through our project, international and locally. And I will say that the feedback from the client and the public client as well is quite good, because when you are talking about technical aspects of the project, it's better to see it before the construction than to discuss that on 2D drawings.
Right.
And so by this way, we have starting to deploy really the visualization to help the adoption of our project, this massive project, for other stakeholders, for the client, and to help him also to make this project adopted by the end users.
Right, right. Nirup?
So when we are talking about taking it forward after you have a 3D model, basically, we're talking about the 4D, 5D, 6 and 7, and whatever else you're talking about in terms of sustainability, cost, and the other add-ons that you provide as a value addition today. Currently, all of that is seen as only a value addition in the industry. But what you really can get out of it, like you said, is there's a lot of benefits that will outweigh the costs eventually. So wherever you have a client who's an operator, who's also invested in it for the long term, they see the real benefit of using the technology up front and allowing the payback to be rolled into the business. I mean, it's a very incremental sum if you look at it from a point of view of design costs. Hardly 2% of a project cost, 2 to 3%.
Yeah.
If you make it 3%, it's not going to affect your overall outcomes very significantly. But when you really look at it, the lifetime of the project, that is hardly 0.3% of a 40-year-long lifespan of a project.
Right.
So in reality, if you start looking at technology that way, the impact will be much more. And in fact, when you take that perspective at the time of design, the increase in design fee by that 50% or whatever would still not matter, because what you can get for that would be multiple iterations where you're able to evaluate optional circumstances, evaluate multiple scenarios, test the models, run simulations for sustainability parameters, for economic parameters, understand the quantities that are going in terms of materials,
Right.
Reduction in surface area, exposure. You could do a number of things that will change your design outcome, and as a result, give you long-term benefits.
Right.
But if you're stuck with one design option that you're just going to see it through the course of design, lock up the books, send it to the contractor, he builds it, and somebody else deals with the O&M of it, you're going to have the standard conundrum of chicken or egg, and what's the real cost benefit that you're getting out of it at this point?
Thank you. Thank you so much. I would like to throw the panel discussion open to the audience for any questions. Does anybody have any questions for any of our panelists? Please raise your hand so we can bring across a mic to them. Sure.
So it's great to hear the perspective from the ones who design and the ones who construct and ones who manage. So we've got all the three major stakeholders up here on the stage talking about what does it take to drive a sustainability. So here's my question. While each one of you had your own perspective on how sustainability can be integrated, technology can drive it, it's still infrastructure that we are creating. How much of human element is integrated while you are having these conversations? For instance, when Nirup, you're designing a smart city, it's been designed for a group of people, right? It's just not infrastructure. So is it an infrastructure-specific design, or is it human-centric that's been looked into? When you're designing a building, would you consider who's going to operate and maintain, and how easy it is to operate and maintain it? Yeah, that's the question.
So as a business, our tagline is building cities and shaping lives. So our approach is built on the fact that we're shaping lives. And it's built on the fact that at the end of the day, the people who are going to use the building or use the city have to eventually be able to work within it. Technology can only get you so far, because technology enables you to do things. It doesn't tell you how to do it. What tells you how to do it is essentially designing the user experience. So it's very similar to software, except you're designing heavy infrastructure. If you can't enjoy the user experience of a software, you're going to switch to another application. It's the same way with infrastructure. Only thing is, you can't really switch once you've put it in concrete. So the idea is to still drive design primarily through the user experience, making sure that that's serviced.
I think even in the workplace, human experience and employee experience is, I would say, trending for the last 1.5 to 2 years. And all the designs, especially the new offices and the buildings themselves, there is a big focus on how are the occupants of the buildings going to experience the place. So that's why you have mixed-use developments, like you have Cyber City out here in Gurgaon, the collaborative spaces that are there inside offices, those you see on TV about bean bags and play areas. But that's all about getting the experience right. And there is, I think, a large focus by all designers as well as the users to get that human experience right.
Thank you. Any more questions? Yes, I think there's a question there.
Good afternoon.
Could you introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, good afternoon. Myself, Dilip Kumar from Shahid Bhagat Singh.
Can you just hold it closer to your mouth?
Hold the mic closer.
Yeah. Myself, Dilip Kumar from University of Delhi, Shahid Bhagat Singh College. I am a geographer, and I am interested in regarding the sustainability and the smart city. And what I think, as in the Delhi, there are lots of problems regarding the infrastructure as well as the site suitability analysis. Is there any technology or the procedure for selecting the place regionally for the sustainability of the city, including all the infrastructure? Not only that, now, as I have seen, the government of India has decided to make 100 smart cities. These are the old cities we have to revive. But there must be some technology for a better place for emerge a new city with all these smartness.
I think you're best suited to answer.
In fact, this is something we did as part of our initial design of the Amaravati Smart City. Part of the challenge that was posed to us by the government of Andhra Pradesh was to identify a suitable location first, involved along with the various stakeholders from the government as well as from the political scenario and whatnot. The idea was to understand the regional context of the whole state, understand what is the best position, understand the requirements of infrastructure of what could potentially be a city that could house a few million people, right? So in terms of water availability, in terms of ability to build something quickly, the suitability of the land, all of this was done. And the other thing we also looked at was the economic impact that the city is going to have on the state as a whole. So it needed to be central, it needed to be something that will add on to the economic advantage that the location already provides, rather than detract from existing economic activity only. Of course, you see that whenever you're talking about major urbanization, there's a change in land use, there's a change in the current use of that land. It's going to happen no matter what. But what we tried to evaluate essentially is what is the greater economic impact that that location has compared to the other locations that are available. And what we did find, we did do a number of simulations, number of algorithms to arrive at the solution. It was basically to do a comparative assessment. You can never have a correct answer, you can only have a better answer than another one, right? Because there are only so many places where you can actually build a city. It will impact lives, it will impact existing infrastructure or use. That's not going to change. But how can you optimize that impact and in fact help provide greater gains to the people and the state as a whole over a period of time? So this is what we looked at. It isn't one software, it's a number of softwares, and it's a number of minds coming together, both from the government as well as from the private sector, from the market. There's a lot of research done on it, feedback from the people, and the willingness of the people for adapting that change. All of this goes into finding and creating that city.
Yeah.
So I just, on the lighter side, Chandigarh was made without any software or any selection, but it's still a well-planned city. So I think what is very critical is the planning phase for any development, be it a building or a transport or smart cities. And that's where you have organizations like Jurong and large master planners who come in and do the planning. So we spend more time on planning, we'll get it right. That's my take on it.
Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for being a wonderful audience. If you have any more questions, please take them offline. Thank you.